I need to revisit my SEIKO Pogue, which I was so eager to get out there at the end of 2021, since it is a true staple of funky time-worn watches, with its fair share of space travel history, as shown in my first video. That bit still holds true, of course, but I think I finally and unwillingly went to that corner of the vintage watch world you do want to avoid, and which I specifically advised you, dear viewer, to stay away from. Oh, the irony. I went in with blind trust in this case, as I bought the watch from someone, privately, that I'd considered to be much more knowledgeable than myself. Well, in short, we both learned a lot since then. Let's get into how you can truly learn from my mistakes and spot the aftermarketry on this watch, on the Time Warp channel. Let's start from the outside and work our way in. The case is one of those parts that I am okay with on this watch. Nicely and evenly brushed on the top, sharp edges, and the rest is polished as it should be, in my opinion. The crown has a distinct dimple and turns the inner bezel properly, which is good since the stem construction is often bungled up. I'm still a little uneasy how such a seemingly untouched case should become the base for the following less than optimal aspects. What are your thoughts? The bracelet is correct in terms of it being an H-link tapered one, while earlier versions also had straight end links. Beyond that, these bracelets do not give off too much to spot an original versus aftermarket, and I think that is the least of our problems here. So let's move on to the more annoying parts. The tachymeter bezel is aftermarket. First piece of evidence, the transition from red to blue is not smack in the middle of the 6 and the 0. Additionally, the inner side of the whole bezel is flat here. Most original ones, but not all, have a beveled inner side. Since that does not count for all, I would generally give this aspect a pass, if the other evidence weren't so convincing. The better the aftermarketry, the further we have to dig into the details though. With this tachymeter scale, there are a few rather minute giveaways. The marker above the 140 of the tachymeter scale sits only above the 4, whereas on the original it ends right in between the 1 and 4. Also, the last stroke of the 4 in 140 is a bit too short. It already feels mad to venture further, but one more thing about the bezel that I found to be the easiest one to spot. The marker on the 250 goes all the way to the right side of the 2, while on the original it stops way before. Yes, this is the kind of detail we're talking about. Unfortunately impressive how close these aftermarket parts come, but I'm very glad that there are still ways to distinguish them and people online with valuable guides like the one from vintagewatchadvices.com or Vintage Time Australia. The inner bezel is aftermarket as well, because why not at this point? They didn't even bother to put some lume on the trapezoid. The dial always struck me as original at first, as it has a nice sunburst but not any distinct concentric circles on the subdial, for example, as on other more simple aftermarket ones. But then again, it lacked a more distinct edge around the subdial, which often is a little darker on original ones since some moisture together with UV exposure discolors the silver layer of the dial underneath the lacquer there over time. This one looks suspiciously clean, of course. I was not sure at first if the indices of the subdial reached the outermost edge, because they should for an original one. It was very close for the 30 here, but less so on the 10. Probably already a good sign for an aftermarket one, but there were other dead giveaways under the macro lens. This is supposed to be an R version of the dial, or 6030 R version. The fact that I have an R dial on a Pogue from 1976 as denoted by the serial number fits the timeline, since the T version was mostly found on earlier models. But apart from that, a true R dial should have a pointy top on the A's of Japan. But they are flat here, as it was original for the T version. This just doesn't add up. The R, which identifies this version of the dial, also looks a bit smaller, and some more characters just do not seem to match in font and positioning upon the dial. The 6 right here is supposed to be at the 37-minute marker, and the I to the right. Here the I is more on the marker than intended. Additionally, the gap between Japan and 6139 is more prominent than on the genuine one. All very minuscule details, but essential as I had to find out the hard way. Additionally, I am suspicious of the SEIKO signage on it. It looks a bit too bold compared to the original dials. What do you think? As for the chrono hands in general and their colors, there were different types of red for 6139 models to make it a bit more complicated. The Sévère one, blue dial version of this watch, had a different hue of red, more of a tomato red, which is a bit more orange, compared to the yellow dial version with deep red hands, for example. With this watch right here, first of all, the red of the seconds hand does not match the red of the minute counter, and the latter even seems to be sloppily covered with flaky paint all over. But the way it was coated and the shape of it is more than enough to label this aftermarket as well. Once you start to doubt some parts, you have to doubt all the parts. About the main hour and minutes handset, for me this was a bit more difficult to discern 100%. It has that characteristic ridge down the middle of both hands, but the lume just rubs me the wrong way. It has a greenish tint that is different from the color of the hour markers, and it is definitely too bright for a supposedly 50-year-old lume. I guess that should be indication enough. With everything we just talked about, we can safely bet this was just an aftermarket replacement rather than a nice reluming of an original handset, I suppose. The day and date, well, the day window is vertically brushed and the date window is polished on the original. Actually true on this one too, but I think it was just done right by the aftermarket producers. About the case back and movement, well, you rarely get pictures of the inside of a Pogue when browsing through most offerings online, but it is still worth checking or asking. If you're hunting for the early versions from 69 up to 1972, there should be an 6139A in there. Later ones have the 6139B version, like mine. Everything okay here, I think, but I wanted to show you anyway to give the experts an opportunity to intervene. The standard position of the crown sets the inner bezel. The first position the time, and day and date is changed with a small push for day and day plus date at the same time with a little more force to the push. But if you have manual winding options with your crown, the caliber is not right. Not sure if you've noticed over the course of this video, but I feel like an idiot now. I even went into denial in the early stages when the first comments came in pointing out some fishy details of my watch right here on the first video. After pulling myself together and spending a few hours on detailed pictures of fakes, originals and everything in between, the verdict became clear. My Pogue had a huge originality crisis going on. But since I paid 500 euros, I shouldn't be surprised, as prices for a truly original 6002, not even mentioning a true Pogue 70 meters resist version of the 6005, in good shape are much higher. I guess I got a bit hasty to satisfy that itch back then. Should have known better. Then again, a high price does not save you from falling victim to an undisclosed aftermarket watch, as I had to find out by browsing through some of the big pre-owned watch sites with my newfound knowledge. Hope you're smarter than me and not deterred from finding your own original Pogues, since it is a truly beautiful watch. I will keep this one, since I still like it aesthetically, even though it might always sting a bit to wear your own lesson about aftermarket pitfalls on the wrist. Anyway, please take notice and ask for those extra close-up and clear pictures of the watch of your desire. And if you're still unsure, head over to the links in the description for even more spots to identify an aftermarket Pogue. If you're interested about the history, please check out my initial video about this fantastic watch model. And as always, see you in the next original one on the Time Worn channel.